So at this point, I've listened to over 1,000 hours of trading podcasts. And over all of my time spent watching these, I've started to notice a pattern. Every single seven-figure trader, regardless of their approach to the market or their strategy, all had these same two skills. A lot of the times they viewed the market in different ways in terms of their approach or the markets that they traded, but they all still had these same two skills. And in my opinion, without these two skills, trading becomes virtually impossible. So in this video, I'm going to break down what these two skills are, why they matter more than anything else in trading, and how you can start to cultivate them. So the first skill is being able to take a loss. And this is one of the most important skills in trading. And I'm sure you've heard about it before, but we're going to get deep into why you can't take a loss, how you can get better at taking a loss, and why it's actually one of the most underrated skills to have as a trader. So when you take a loss, it's tied into many different things. It is tied into your survival mechanism. It's tied into your self-identity. It's tied into beliefs about yourself and your ego, your thoughts. And it's also tied into monetary loss. So when you take a loss, not only are you losing the monetary value of that trade, but you are also taking a hit to your ego. You have to admit that you were wrong. So traders who are not humble or who don't have a certain level of ego death, I guess you could call it, are going to be a lot more hurt when they take a loss than someone who doesn't get attached to their ego and is able to easily let a loss slide. And one thing about taking losses that I think is underrated information is that taking a loss doesn't always get easier. Sometimes it gets harder the more professional of a trader you become and the more successful you become. Why is this the case? Because you feel like you start to become beyond that in the sense of, I really thought my analysis was right. And you get locked into a certain bias, a certain way of thinking, and you believe so much based on your experience that you are right, that when you take that loss, it hurts even more. So one rule that I've put in place for myself is I need a cool-off period after taking a loss. There's always that immediate urge to re-enter into a trade after taking a loss, and I'm sure you felt that exact same feeling. And one of the reasons this happens is when you enter a trade, you are sending an extremely strong signal that you think price is going to go in a certain direction. And in that moment, you become locked into a particular bias. Because if you did not think price was going to go in that direction, then you never would have placed that trade in the first place. So where it gets very dangerous is when you get stopped out. Your mind keeps saying, maybe I was, just wrong by a slight little tick. Maybe the market's just going to go 10 points higher and then finally sell off. But what ends up happening is you get locked into the short bias and you try to re-enter your short position without actually having rules to do so, having measures in place that say that you should re-enter short. And then what ends up happening, you end up getting stopped out again, and then again, and again, and you keep trying to re-enter the same position as the market is just pushing further and further against you. So how many of you has this happened to? I'm sure most people watching this video, this exact thing has happened to you. So you need to be very aware that taking a trade locks you into a specific bias, and then be aware the dangers of this and the dangers of maintaining a bias in general. Having a more fluid approach where you get stopped out and you think to yourself, maybe I could be wrong. Maybe my trade idea wasn't good. That is a much more healthy way to think about it than saying, you know what? I was right all along. I just got in at the wrong entry. I'm going to re-enter again. And there's nothing wrong with re-entering if the market shows you based on your proven edge that a re-entry makes sense. But if you're just getting in because you feel like you just missed out or you just got stopped out, then that's very bad. And when this moment happens, when price is ripping toward your stop loss, you're going to feel a certain kind of way. Like I said, first of all, you're losing monetary value. You're losing money. You have also been proven wrong. So immediately that is annoying to the human brain. It does not like to lose and it does not like to be wrong. But it is actually the little part of yourself that hates being wrong. In other words, it is your ego or your thoughts that hate being wrong. It is the way you see yourself in your certain self-perception. This is why traders who come into the market and believe they are very smart people and very capable and intelligent have an incredibly hard time with trading, because trading requires a certain level of humbleness, being humble. So if you've experienced success in other areas of your life and you've just been able to brute force your way through it, or, just have that winner's mentality, this can be difficult in trading because sometimes you just need to take a loss on the forehead and move on. But what you try to do if you have this winner's mentality or fight through it kind of approach is that's what leads you into getting stopped out and then trying to re-enter, getting stopped out, trying to re-enter, and you start fighting the natural flow of the market. So to get better at taking losses, it's really important that you detach from this little part of yourself or your thoughts and ego and realize that you are the observer of your mind, so that you can have this separation in between this part of yourself that really hates to take a loss and has a image or an ego to maintain, and just the quiet observer who does not care one way or the other what happens. So when you trade from the quiet observer, you are in a place of neutrality. But when you're locked into your ego, you're in a place of duality. And by duality, I mean there's always a black and white. And so you're constantly locked into this roller coaster ride that the mind has you on. And your ego is what gives meaning where no meaning exists. So what I mean by this is when you take a loss, it's not inherently meaningful in terms of who you are as a person, who you are as a trader, or if your edge or strategy is good. It is falling on the wrong side of variance. And as a trader, you must understand variance. If you flip a coin 20 times, you could have 12 tails in a row. You could even have 15 tails in a row and only 5 heads. Is it likely to happen? No, but it can happen. So traders abandon strategies and they go off the rails because they don't actually trust their system. And being able to take a loss ties into fully trusting your system. If you are unclear on your system, you don't really know what your system is, or if you just, don't trust it fully and have full conviction, then I'm sure you can see why it would be much harder to take a loss. Because in that moment, you don't have any real backbone or foundation to go on of why just continuing as you're doing makes sense. So that's why, specifically in my case, I posted my last 2 days trading on this channel, and they were bad red days. However, I have thoroughly backtested the strategy over 5 years of data, over every market condition, over all kinds of different scenarios. It has been extensively proven and battle tested, which means if I have a couple bad days, I've seen that happen on the backtest over and over and over again. I have a ridiculous amount of conviction in the way that I'm trading because I've seen proof that it works and I know that it's data tested. If you don't have that proof, then in the moment it comes down to do the actual right thing, which is just take the loss on the head or end a losing day, your mind is going to be like, just one more trade or, re-enter here. And you just don't have enough clarity or conviction of your strategy. And I honestly think this is one of the biggest misconceptions in trading, is that a strategy should always be winning. Things should always be good. And of course, it's a lot more sexy to post wins online and to post green days, or like a whole month of just green right across the screen. But this is not going to be every month. In my backtesting results, there was some months where I could do no wrong, right? Every single trade was a winner. It was a beautiful month. And then the next month, maybe 8 days of that month were losing days. However, in the month before, you make, 30% on a $100,000 account, $30,000. And the next month, you grind it out a little bit more, maybe end the month up 4%. Either way, over 2 months, you're still up $34,000, which is a great income. But people don't see it like this. They immediately see a series of losses and they start thinking that they must be doing something wrong. And yeah, it's possible that you are, but that is why it's so important to actually prove your edge, and you need to know it with conviction, or else taking a loss, moving on, and following your plan is just going to be extremely difficult. And this even includes non-mechanical trading as well. Like, if you just trade discretionary, then you should go back in time and you should play out the charts really, really slow and forward test your discretionary skills to see if you're lying to yourself and pretending like, you're some kind of market wizard who can just discretionarily predict where price is going to go, or if that's actually proven over data. And if you can prove that, then that increases your trust in yourself, increases your conviction, and conviction will solve a lot of trading problems. So not being able to take a loss is a deeper underlying issue of, first of all, how you think, how your thoughts operate, and you believing that you are these thoughts, and so you're buying into their narrative that say we're not supposed to be wrong, or say that taking loss is inherently horrible and bad. Second, you don't have enough conviction in the way you trade, and you're not clear enough. You don't have enough clarity in the way that you're trading to be able to trust the process and take a loss and move on. And third, taking a loss actually changes our physiology. So it will raise your heart rate, it'll raise your cortisol, your actual physiology in your body will change, your nervous system becomes heightened. And in that place, you start to think from an irrational point of view. So when you are calm, you are in a logical place, you are thinking logically. The more you take losses, the more illogical you become. I'm sure everyone has felt it, the meltdown of trading, where you take one loss, which spirals into two losses, which spirals into three, and before you know it, you don't even know what in the hell you're doing anymore. You're clicking buttons, you're up, you're down, you're going short, you're going long. It's a freaking disaster. So that is why mastering the skill of taking losses and getting deep into your psyche, why can't I take a loss? What are the beliefs I hold that prevent me from being able to just take a loss? Do I have certain bad beliefs about trading, bad expectations that I think a trading strategy should always be winning or always be green? Do I have true conviction in the way I'm trading, or is it still unclear? Do I have true data-backed, tested proof in my mind that this 100% works? So anyways, yeah, that's the first skill. You need to be able to take a loss like a friggin' scholar, like a saint. Second, patience, but not in the, surface level, I'll just be patient, bro, wait for your setup. Yes, that's a part of it, but I'm talking patience as an actual way of living life. Patience as an overall methodology. In other words, delayed gratification. And delayed gratification goes hand in hand with patience. Delayed gratification means being able to take low size on trades, being able to sit out an entire trading day and not take a single position, being able to wait after taking a loss when your mind is screaming to get back into the market, and being able to wait for the market to set up again. So patience is an all-encompassing kind of emotion, or I don't know if emotion is the right word, but overall lens that you need to view the market through. Because what pays is delayed gratification and being patient to see results. Not trying to make a whole ton of money all up front, but having a long-term outlook and understanding to keep your expectations at bay, especially when you haven't experienced a lot of success yet. So this means, being patient and waiting for setups. It means keeping size at a good level where you're not going to see any massive spikes in your bounce, but you're not going to see any huge crashes either. And playing the compound long game of scaling up with these prop firms, which is how you actually make real money with them. But if you're struggling to be patient, then there's probably a deeper underlying reason why that is the case. Well, first of all, one of the deeper underlying reasons is that the brain, the human brain just wants excitement and it wants dopamine now. If you are a click of a button away from getting into a trade and feeling excited, then the mind is constantly screaming, like literally throughout the entire trading day, you should get into a trade right now. This looks pretty good. You could get in here. And what I'm noticing in myself is my mind will look for reasons to get into the market rather than looking for reasons to stay out. And I'm just discovering this about myself right now, is I will say, oh, this and this and this are aligning. These are all reasons I should get in. But I'm starting to reframe and become more selective, and I want to become more selective in 2026 of, okay, what are some reasons to stay out of this? Is there any conflicting information of why I should not be in this trade? And being able to stay patient also comes back to having conviction of your strategy. Because if you're unclear, if you don't know exactly how you're trading or what you're trading, then guess what? It's going to be extremely easy just to get into the market, put on a position, and hope for the best. Because you're trading too many different ways. You have like 6 different methodologies, 6 different ways of looking at things on the go, because you're trying to catch every move to satisfy your little ego. Well, guess what? That doesn't make money. It's not going to pull consistent profits out of the market. And maybe for some people, but that's because they have actually proven that works. For most people, they say they lie to themselves and they say, I can scalp the market. I catch all these little moves and intricacies in the market. But they're not actually, there's no data behind it. And when it starts to fall apart in front of their eyes, they don't really understand why. And they don't understand the long-term expectancy of the way they're trading. So to be patient, you must have a certain level of conviction in the way you're trading. Also, to have patience in trading is having patience in life. And that means not chasing instant gratification. Social media, marijuana, alcohol, entertaining media like television, Netflix, all these things, what do? They spike dopamine. And your brain becomes used to instant gratification, instant pleasure. What does your brain want more of? It wants more of what it gets. So if you're constantly filling your brain with dopamine, with instant gratification, what do you think is going to happen when you come into a trading day? Your brain is going to want more of what it's already getting. So right now, I'm personally trying a dopamine detox where I've removed everything that's fun from my life. And what happens when you remove fun things from your life? You might be thinking right now, man, that sounds horrible. Why would you do that? And it's because when you remove highly stimulating things, like for example, me sitting alone in my room and binge watching 3 Netflix shows in a row, and then checking social media and watching something entertaining, that releases a consistent amount of dopamine into your brain that you do not need to work for. And that actually takes you nowhere in life. You're not any further along in your life from watching that Netflix series. But what happens when you cut that stuff out, life becomes fun. Doing stuff that's actually helpful to you becomes fun. Making this YouTube video, this might be one of the most fun times I've ever had making a video. Because right now, this is the only way I can actually get any pleasure. It's the only way I can have fun is to just do stuff that's actually helpful to my life. So just little things that I need to do that are usually super tedious, they feel a lot more fun now. And when that comes into trading, it's when I show up on the charts, just doing the right thing and having good sizing and having that long-term outlook, that actually becomes a lot more fun for me because my brain is not accustomed and it is not on that, hamster wheel of needing more instant gratification to feel okay. And then obviously patience just ties back into your ego and understanding yourself. Understanding that you're not your mind, but that you are the observer of your mind. And so that you can see when that little part of yourself, when your little me or little ego is trying to steer you off course, you can notice it and realize, wow, my mind really wants to be impatient right now. But I am not my mind. I do not need to follow and act based on what my mind says and what my emotions say. So you can never stop your emotions or stop the want to jump into a trade and be an impatient person. However, you can detach from that part of yourself that wants that. Because at the end of the day, there's never going to be a moment where you're like, you know what? I just love sitting on my hands for 6 hours straight and not taking a single trade. It's just never going to happen. You're never going to feel like that's whip de freaking kaye do, amazing. It's always going to feel kind of painful in the moment. And so doing the things it takes to be a profitable trader is uncomfortable. And in the moment, it is painful to just sit there and watch the chart tick around without you and not do anything and not take any action. Anyway, hope this helped.